Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your weekly news recap. We, as usual, are your hosts, Jacob Smith,
and Matt Morgans,
here to break down some of the biggest and most interesting stories of the week in the news, the gaming industry. We're always looking to answer audience questions and implement audience feedback, so of course, if you have any of either, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And Matt, jumping right into it, of course, we've got new Call of Duty Modern Warfare news surrounding the interesting gunfight game mode that we've covered in the past.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit last week when it was first shown with when it was live streamed by content creators. But since then, Activision and Infinity Ward have come out with a lot more concrete information about what Gunfight's actually going to be. And they also released a 4K gameplay video that gives people a much clearer idea of what Gunfight's going to be if you didn't see one of those streams. So basically, we now know we already knew Gunfight was going to be a 2v2 multi-round deathmatch, but we now have a much clearer picture of what it's going to be. So because you've only got 2 players on each side and you're on a very enclosed map, the rounds are going to be very, very short. They've literally got a 40-second time limit. Yeah, so it's going to be very fast-paced. And to win a match, you're going to need to win 6 rounds. So you're going to be jumping from round to round pretty quickly. To kind of make it a real even playing field, because you've only got 2 players on each side, you're always going to have the same loadout as the other players. But the game is going to force you to use different weapons by changing the default loadout every 2 rounds. So that means you'll use at least 3 different loadouts in a single game, and as many as 6 if you play through, but the teams just win round after round. The loadouts will always include a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, a tactical grenade, like a flashbang, and a piece of lethal equipment, like a frag grenade or something like that. If the time limit elapses and the game's still going, the game will shift into overtime, and that will basically turn it into a flag capture game. So it'll shift from deathmatch to this flag will spawn in the middle of the map. You have 10 seconds to capture it, and it takes 3 seconds to capture. So you really have to rush to capture that flag.
That is absolutely frenetic. I love it.
Yeah, it's really going to be fast-paced. If you capture the flag, your team wins the round. If you get to the end of that 10 seconds of overtime, then whoever is left alive will win. And if both teams are left alive, it's the team with the most health that will win.
Okay.
And because of obviously the very small scale, it will take place on custom maps. That was something that wasn't totally clear from the live streams, whether the maps were like cut down versions of larger maps that'll be available for other modes, or whether they were on maps that would just be available for other modes. No, it will be on specifically custom versions of maps for Gunfight. And there's 3 of those, which is King, Stack, and Pine, which those were the ones that were shown in the live stream. Activision and Infinity Ward haven't officially confirmed that there's more, but they did describe it in a blog post as the first 3 maps shown.
I can't imagine there's only 3.
Yeah, does suggest that there might be more. I mean, it's possible that when they say the first 3 maps shown, they're talking about multiplayer maps in general, so it's not for definite that we're going to see more gunfight maps, but given the fast-paced nature of the game and the fact that the maps are very small, so they probably don't take as long to make, I wouldn't be surprised to see more when they do reveal more about multiplayer.
I didn't catch the stream, so this is all news to me, and honestly, it's really cool. I feel like this is an awesome way to innovate on the naturally fast-paced, like I said, like really frenetic way that Call of Duty handles multiplayer. And while they've said that Modern Warfare is going to be different, I like that they're still kind of leaning into the roots in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
It seems, but with a tighter squad focus, right? With a smaller map size, it is kind of taking sudden death and making it its own little spin. Its own little game mode, which is awesome.
Yeah, certainly last time we talked about this, we referred to it as something of an antidote to Battle Royale, and it really is the opposite to what Battle
It-
Royale could be.
Quite literally the antithesis to everything that Fortnite and
Yeah.
Apex are trying to do.
We still don't have a confirmation of whether or not Modern Warfare is going to have Battle Royale. There have been rumours that it will have Battle Royale, and quite a big one at that, but those are unconfirmed for now. And certainly the game is shaping up to have a lot of other multiplayer components, so at this point we could see a Modern Warfare without Battle Royale, but I think the odds are in favour of it having Battle Royale due to the success of their last title.
Well, and you want to cover all your bases, right? As as devs, as publishers, so you want to cover
exactly.
drawing the crowd of Battle Royale players and people who like smaller modes like Gunfight.
But yeah, it's definitely nice to see the developers catering for different players and what different players are going to want. So the more sort of squad-focused maps and modes and things like Gunfight alongside the bigger Battle Royale, if indeed that does prove to be the case. And in fact, people may get the chance to try out Modern Warfare for themselves a bit sooner than expected if a leak is to be believed. There was recently a leak of potential start dates for a Call of Duty Modern Warfare beta. Now, obviously, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but the source for this leak is a source that has leaked stuff about Modern Warfare in the past that has proven correct. So, we always take it with a grain of salt, but this isn't just sort of some wild leak that's come out of nowhere.
No, it doesn't seem like it, does it?
No. And according to the leak, there will be a Modern Warfare beta which will open on the 20th of August for PS4, and then a week later on other platforms. We don't know how long. That's not
far away.
No, it's a bit closer than some people might have thought, but it's certainly feasible. The game's set for release on the 25th of October, and if they're putting a beta in place for sort of the end of August, that gives them a couple of months to work on any potential fixes and changes, which is a good period of time. It means they're not going to need to rush to do fixes. And they are doing a big multiplayer reveal event on the 1st of August, which might well be when they announce beta dates. So
it all seems like it's kind of lining up and they're giving themselves that perfect cushion. So
I don't know
see.
if the dates will be exactly correct, because of course, even if the plan turns out to be correct, this might be slightly out of date information, and maybe Activision internally shifts the dates around a bit. But I think it's certainly feasible that we could see a beta towards the end of August.
Yeah, I don't think that possibility is far off at all. And speaking of possibilities, Matt, I know we have a lot of confirmed details and possibilities regarding Cyberpunk 2077, because, again, what's a weekly news recap without at least a little morsel of 2077 news?
Well, Cyberpunk 2077, we really got a lot of a little with that game at the moment. There was a big interview that WCCF Tech did with CD Projekt Red's Alvin Liu, and in that interview we covered a lot of topics in not a lot of detail in most cases. So it's mostly small points that we've learned about the game. So, for example, we've learned that the game will include NPCs who cannot be killed. Story-relevant characters, of course. Although, interestingly, it will also include child NPCs. So, just like Skyrim, children will be invincible.
Naturally.
We learned that the police in Night City will essentially be bought by the corporations. So, the police aren't necessarily going to operate like the police in GTA 5, say, where they just come after you for committing crimes. They are going to be following a bit of an agenda, and that may vary by district to district, and it may vary depending on story.
It's very much fitting with the world of Cyberpunk as well.
Absolutely. We also got another sort of tidbit of information about the dynamic weather system, that it will include some form of acid rain, but we don't know exactly what effect that's going to have in-game, whether it's going to literally be damaging or just be some kind of detrimental effect. We learned that all the cars and motorcycles will have inbuilt radios, just like in GTA, so you'll be able to listen to a variety of radio stations and the in-game music while you're driving. And in fact, you'll have some opportunities to drive quite a bit, because Also in this interview, it was revealed that players will be able to leave Night City and actually go out into the deserts of California.
Into the wasteland.
Yeah, Alvin Liu said that actually it's a really good place to really open up with the cars and motorcycles, because it's kind of difficult to drive really fast in the city where you're having to maneuver through this dense urban environment.
Of course.
Out in the desert, you can really open the throttle up, as it were. So that'll be a very interesting sort of area of the game to see. We don't know how much is out there, but it's unlike CD Projekt Red to make an area of the game that doesn't include some kind of story. So I suspect we'll have a story reason to be going out of the city.
Yeah, well, and we know that nomads will be featured in the game, so it makes sense for them to play more than just a minor role in the world of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, and speaking of nomads, we got the details for the 3 life paths, which are essentially a sort of character creation option that sets a backstory for V. You can choose 3 life paths, and one of those is indeed Nomad. The others are Street Kid and Corpo. So basically that kind of sets up a backstory for your character up until the start of the game. Whether you were, working in a corporation, whether you were just raised on the streets, or whether you've actually come into the city from the outskirts where you were living as a nomad. We currently don't know how much impact the life paths are going to have in-game, but certainly one would expect that they'd be fairly important.
Yeah,
certainly when it comes to interacting with NPCs from different factions.
Yeah, we've seen in interviews with like Pablo Sasco, like quest designers and such, and directors, and Mateusz Tomaszkiewicz, that they've insinuated that the life path system will heavily influence how V experiences the world and how the world of Night City experiences V. So that's cool, and I know we've heard from people who saw the private demo at E3 that certain dialogue options were locked to certain life paths, or unlocked because of certain life paths. So I think that's awesome. I think that's a great way to tackle the kind of in-depth role-playing aspect of it and make each playthrough really different.
Oh, for sure. It certainly introduces a very nice level of replayability.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing we also learned from this interview, something that's been rumoured for a really long time finally got quashed, which is the rumour that Lady Gaga was going to have a cameo in the game.
Oh, man, I forgot about that rumour.
Yeah, that's a rumour that's been going for about 9 months.
Yeah.
When I covered this in an article, I had to go back through all the records and trying to find out where it started. So about 9 months ago, the CD Projekt Red, the Cyberpunk Twitter account retweeted a completely incomprehensible tweet from Lady Gaga from years ago, and everyone thought it was a hint that Lady Gaga was going to feature in the game in some kind of cameo role, maybe by providing music for the game or something along those lines. And then 3 months ago, I think, there was a rumour from a French gaming website that Lady Gaga had actually visited CD Projekt Red. Now, as far as I was able to find out, that visit was never officially confirmed. Mm-hmm. So we don't actually know if that rumour is true. Supposedly, a source at the studio told this gaming website that it had happened. But whether it happened or not, it doesn't seem to have resulted in any kind of cameo. Alvin Liu said that there definitely won't be a cameo, and he said that, well, the way he spoke kind of implied that they may have considered a variety of celebrity, cameos and things like that before finally approaching Keanu Reeves, and obviously that's proven to be a very good decision. Mm-hmm. So we don't know if maybe they were in talks with Lady Gaga at some point, and maybe that visit did happen. But if that did happen, evidently they weren't able to reach a deal, or maybe they just decided that Keanu Reeves was the better option.
I mean, let's be real, Keanu Reeves totally is the better option, but I mean, I know I say this all the time, especially around E3, I said it, but if they did have a cameo that they were trying to keep secret, they'd tell us they didn't have a cameo, huh? I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some cameos tucked away in the game. that they just haven't mentioned at all. But this is at least one case where we've got a confirmation that there will not be a cameo.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a distinct lack of Lady Gaga.
So the other thing that we kind of got at the end of the interview was a reassurance that the game is actually going to definitely look good on consoles. Obviously, what they've shown so far has all been kind of high-end PC, running demos, where the game looks really good. And that's kind of got a lot of console users worried that the game is going to get a bit of a downgrade on current-gen consoles, given that we're coming to the end of a console generation and the consoles are starting to feel a little bit outdated.
They're showing their age, definitely.
Yeah. But no, Liu was asked about that, and he said that the game demo that they showed at this E3, which hasn't yet been shown publicly, but I think will be shown fairly soon, was running...
I believe, yeah.
Yes, was running at 1080p. Trailers and publicly released assets are apparently at 4K. The in-game UI is mostly designed at 4K, but it will actually swap assets and do intelligent scaling, so it can handle 1080p, 720p, 1440p, anything like that. And it can actually scale the UI on a need-by-need basis, which is quite clever. So hopefully the UI will look very good on anything. But he also said that the game will definitely look amazing on current-gen consoles, and that is apparently due to their custom engine, which is the Red engine.
Yeah.
And he explained that they're targeting consoles as first-class platforms. So he said, obviously, if you've spent $2,000 building a PC rig, it's going to look better on that. But, and this is the quote, but the graphics are quite amazing for what you're going to get from Cyberpunk 2077 on consoles and low-end PCs.
That's not too surprising. I mean, the low-end PCs is a bit surprising, considering The Witcher is a stuttering mess if you try to run it on, an underpowered machine, PC-wise. But that doesn't surprise me, given the fact that The Witcher 3 did look gorgeous on my baseline PS4. And that thing still holds up as one of the most gorgeous games on the platform.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't surprise me that CDPR knows how to really optimize their games well.
Yeah, for sure.
For consoles specifically. Especially given the nature of their catering to fans. Like, I know they want to be able to please fans as much as possible, and they're not going to be able to do that if they make the game look like crap on consoles.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's an awesome little reassurance, and such great little tidbits. I almost don't want to call them tidbits, because that was such a complete meal of cyberpunk content. But I'm looking forward to hearing more in the inevitable months to come.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sure there'll be a whole slew of interviews and whatnot after they show the gameplay demo that was shown at E3.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll look forward to that late August, early September at PAX West, which will be happening just a few miles from my house. I'm gonna pretend like I'm not jealous. And Matt, you've got some interesting stuff with the StreamLabs quarterly reports. I know that we've got some awesome charts, some information regarding all the stuff that they have to offer.
Yeah, so we've covered StreamLabs and Stream Elements quarterly reports
a few times
previously.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, we once again worked with them prior to the report's release, so we got the report ahead of embargo, and I ended up doing a feature article, which you can find in the video description, which kind of gives you a brief overview of what the latest report shows, and it's a very interesting report, some interesting shifts in trends for the streaming industry. And the main one is that Twitch views actually declined for the first time in over a year. Twitch views have been inclining since the first quarter of 2018, and they've had very steady growth throughout that, rising from 2,000 million hours watched in Q1 of 2018 up to 2,700 in Q1 of 2019. However, in the last quarter, that dropped back to 2,700.
Twitch.
So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's only a 2% decrease, so it's not a huge blow for Twitch, but it's notable because it is the end of a significant trend. And if it proves to itself be a trend, it could start to be quite a notable issue for Twitch.
Certainly.
At the moment, Twitch is still very solidly ahead of all of its competition. But the latest figures do suggest that there's a bit of a demographic shift from people moving off of Twitch and moving on to alternate platforms like YouTube Live and Mixer. Now, obviously, it's not a huge number of people, but it's starting to be a shift.
Okay.
So while we only saw a 2% decrease in overall performance for Twitch, there's a couple of other areas where they actually declined a lot more. The number of hours streamed actually declined by about 10% from last quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the number of new channels set up on Twitch fell massively. Closer to 20% drop from last quarter. Overall, the one area where they did grow, the number of viewers per channel on average actually did go up by about 10%. So they're now averaging about 28.6 viewers per channel. But actually YouTube is still far ahead in that category. YouTube in the last quarter actually had a really good quarter. Their number of hours watched, while Twitch fell by about 2%, their hours watched increased by about 10%. And they've now hit 702 million hours watched in one quarter. Obviously, that's still a much smaller figure than Twitch, but they're climbing.
The growth is what we're really looking at here, of course.
Absolutely. The number of hours streamed also rose by 4%, and the number of average concurrent users rose 9%. So they rose in pretty much every category. And they still have the highest average viewer per channel figure. They average 53 viewers per channel, which is almost double what Twitch has. And it's much higher than anything else. So we don't know if people are literally moving from Twitch to YouTube. We've got no sort of user polls or anything to know that for certain. But the simultaneous decline of Twitch and growth of YouTube does suggest we're seeing a little bit of demographic shifting, in amongst new viewers coming onto platforms. The other areas where things are kind of shifting around a bit, Mixer had a really good quarterly performance this quarter in Q1.
And that surprised me.
In Q2 rather.
Mm-hmm.
They actually shot up. Now obviously their numbers are way below YouTube. The YouTube and Twitch, this is very much a two-horse race, and one of those horses is 200 yards back. And then there's a couple of horses that are still in the dock, who haven't actually left, and that's Mixer and the other platform that I'm going to mention in a moment. But they exist, so they're worth talking about.
They're there. They're on the track.
So their views actually have been declining in pretty much all through 2018. Their views were declining. They dropped from about 10.4 million hours watched down to 6.1. And then last quarter they rose back to 6.4. And then this quarter they shot up to 12. So they almost doubled their hours watched in a single quarter. And actually, year over year, their hours watched figure this quarter has increased by 357%, which is massive for Mixer.
I'd whistle if it weren't going to blow up my levels right now. That is...
Obviously, they're not a serious threat to their two main competitors, but it actually looks like the site is set for more growth throughout 2019.
Yeah.
Especially if it's starting to pick up even just a few viewers from Twitch. A few viewers from Twitch comparatively is a lot of viewers for Mixer. So
this isn't necessarily about raw numbers. This is about, like you said, growth and
exactly.
And, the potential here is clearly showing itself because things don't grow at that rapid a pace for no reason. Granted,
No.
is it sustainable is the big question.
Yes, for sure.
But I think it's interesting to see that there is another competitor. How major they are is relative, but the fact
Yes.
that they're in the field is interesting enough and makes them worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, well, speaking of other competitors, we actually have for the first time data on DLive, which is another streaming platform which up till now has not publicly revealed this kind of data. And this is the first quarter where they actually partnered with StreamLabs to release data for their Q2 2019 report. And as a result, we now know that DLive is actually bigger than Mixer. So Mixer's number 3 spot has been usurped.
Oh, DLive.
By DLive. The DLive's hours watched figure in Q2 was 34.2 million hours. So that's almost 3 times what Mixer was getting.
For a service I've never even heard of. That's
Yeah, well, this is the thing about DLive. It's a bit different to the other platforms because of how it works. It's using blockchain technology in their setup, which definitely caters to a bit of a niche audience.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that now I'm not a follower of PewDiePie, so I was unaware of this until I researched DLive for the report. But apparently DLive is PewDiePie's streaming platform of choice these days. And as a result, that brings in a lot of viewers for DLive.
That will certainly affect your numbers positively.
Yeah. So I think the blockchain aspect is a bit of a barrier to entry when it comes to streamers wanting to use the platform and, viewers getting into it. But those big names have brought a lot of viewers into DLive and helped it to perform kind of above average, especially compared to Mixer, which is more of a direct competitor.
What's interesting about it's overtaking Mixer as well, is that Mixer's been in the field, in a kind of relative household name for a while, and so to see something, especially as niche, break into the mix, that's impressive.
Yeah, I think it's definitely being driven by big names. We don't see that as much for Mixer. Mixer's generally seen as sort of a secondary platform to either Twitch or YouTube when it comes to streaming.
Generally, always, yeah.
You don't tend to see many people streaming primarily on Mixer. But in this case, we actually do have PewDiePie streaming primarily on DLive. And actually, back in early June, he had a Fortnite collaboration with Ninja that apparently drew like hundreds of thousands of viewers into DLive.
Yeah, and I know that.
It does make me think that Q2 2019 might have been a really good, like higher than average quarter for DLive, and that might be why they've chosen to release their figures now. Because up until now they have not released their figures publicly. So my bet is that that Q2 was a particularly good quarter for them, and they thought now's the time to put our data out there now that we're performing very well.
Well, and if I may kind of make assumptions, PewDiePie, Ninja, Fortnite, it seems like DLive is probably drawing in a hefty young audience, which is,
yes,
if you want an audience to grow rapidly, you got to engage young people, and if they're accomplishing that, then they're clearly doing something right in the field of streaming.
Yeah, definitely. So to kind of wrap up the report, there's a couple of other interesting trends. One of them is actually that mobile live streaming is on the rise. Mobile streaming's been very steadily rising since kind of March of 2018, and in the last quarter alone it's risen by 16%. So this is specifically people streaming on a mobile device, not watching streams on mobile devices. And actually the number of active mobile streamers is now over 479,000, which is a massive increase. Given that in March of 2018 that figure was 80,000. So huge growth for mobile streamers.
Yeah.
And that increase is really tied into the rise of the just chatting category, which has been steadily rising kind of through the last year, particularly as sort of a trend. And as of this last report, it's now sitting in the number 4 spot on Twitch for most watched category.
Just chat.
That means just chatting, which has no gameplay. It's just people talking to an audience. has now overtaken Dota 2, CSGO, World of Warcraft, and a ton of others. The only things that are performing better than it are Fortnite, League of Legends, and GTA 5.
Look, I mean, if this makes Twitch a more versatile, kind of diverse platform content-wise, go for it. I mean, it's not
I
a
think
rise
that's precisely it.
I would have predicted, but
I think people are starting. Certainly, there's a niche audience that's been growing rapidly of people who are using Twitch for other things than gaming. You know, Twitch really started as a gaming live streaming platform, but it feels like more and more it's becoming a live streaming platform. And, you know, the focus of that is on gaming, but it's growing to become sort of a content delivery platform for a lot of different people, and a lot of those new people are not really involved in gaming. They're just using Twitch as a platform to live stream and talk to an audience.
I think that's the best way, honestly, for Twitch to maintain longevity and relevancy, because
it certainly opens it up to a wider audience,
Yeah.
and it makes it more of an open platform. It's not just a gaming industry platform. It starts to become a useful platform for, you know, as varied a thing as, you know, professional cosplayers talking to an audience and people running business seminars through Twitch for people on online live, you know, all over the world.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting kind of field of expansion.
Yeah, it really is. A lot of really cool, interesting, and very unexpected growth coming from the Q2 StreamLabs report. And real quick, we're going to go a little bit long because I want to touch on a little bit of controversy that hit Nintendo recently. You may or may not have heard of Joycon drift. It is a condition that the Switch's Joy-Con controllers have been afflicted with. Some people have reported it since shortly after launch in 2017. A lot of people are only experiencing it now as their consoles are starting to show some age. But it is essentially a glitch where in the hardware where the thumbstick will register movement even if you're not touching it, thus interfering with basically every game you're going to play. And an American law firm, Carmichaels, Schwartz, Kreiner, and Donaldson Smith, that's their whole name, has filed a class action lawsuit against Nintendo. I guess, you know, seeing that this issue has really picked up steam in the last few weeks. They are a law firm that has particularly gone after technological companies in the past, like various data firms or data breaches, things like that. So it makes sense that they would want to pick this case up, and it's a pretty simple suit. And it basically claims that Nintendo is and has been well aware of Joy-Con drifting as a hardware issue and has done nothing to fix it. And of course, this has kind of sparked an interesting response from the community. On one hand, I feel like you have people who are like, "Good, finally, there's someone taking it to Nintendo, as it were," and other people kind of questioning how effective this will actually be.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the kind of thing that would actually force Nintendo to do anything like a product recall of Joy-Cons or something like that. You know, I don't know enough about the law firm. There are a handful of law firms that have been known for going after, you know, gaming industry companies, and they're, you know, a bit like ambulance chasers. You know, they'll see a thing come up on social media, they'll, you know, throw a petition together to try and whip up public support, and then they don't really go after any change. It kind of feels like they're just trying to get the company to settle out of court, and they're kind of just going for the profits. Hopefully that's not the case in this case, and that, you know, they are actually trying to get the company to do the right thing.
Yeah, at the very least, they seem experienced not in the field of gaming, but in, you know, technology.
Tech, yeah.
And so this is kind of their wheelhouse. Their motives are not entirely clear.
Yeah, I to be honest, I could see it go either way for Nintendo in terms of, do they know that this is a problem? And I think it might depend on timing. You know, if this is a problem that people are only starting to report now, I could conceivably see it as a thing that they legitimately didn't know. Because if this is an issue that generally only shows up after a Joy-Con's seen kind of consistent use for 2+ years, and it's only showing up now because people's Joy-Cons are now like 2 years old, then I could kind of understand if their QA team, hasn't come across this because they didn't have 2 years to test the Joy-Con, so the problem just never arose. We definitely see that with the bugs and things in game, and we certainly see it even on day one releases. I mean, this is why companies have betas, because when you've got thousands of players playing the game, you're going to discover bugs that your 30-man QA team just can't find.
Just can't pick up.
And it's always surprising how many big bugs get picked up in betas that were completely missed.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how Nintendo responds, if this really amounts to anything. But those Joy-Cons are not cheap at $80 for a pair. So hopefully, they're rolling out new colors this October. So hopefully by the time those are hitting shelves, this is resolved. One way or another. But that is going to wrap it up for us this week. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. You can find these stories and more at VGR.com. If you have any questions or ways you think we can improve the show, please leave them in the comments down below. Once again, I've been Jacob Smith.
And I'm Matt Morgans.
And we will see you next week. Hey everybody, Jago here with a little post-episode addendum because as I'm sitting down to edit this week's episode of the podcast, a development has been made on the Joy-Con Drift story. According to reports initially made by Vice, Nintendo has internally pledged to fix Joy-Con Drift for free, no questions asked, as well as reimburse anyone who had previously paid for issues regarding their thumbsticks on their Joy-Cons. While this is not publicly confirmed, this would indeed be a step in the right direction. Who knows? Maybe this is pressure put on from the law firm with a name too long to say twice, or maybe it is just Nintendo trying to be a good company and do right by its customers, especially considering they're probably trying to gain goodwill leading up to the Nintendo Switch Lite's release. But nonetheless, just a little tidbit of information for you guys to round out the week. Thank you so much for listening this far, when we will see you next week.